So, hey, Jahkil, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. My name's Dorian. It's really nice to finally meet you. And first things first, can you introduce yourself and just sort of the plethora of things that you do to our audience that aren't super familiar with you?
My name is Jahkil, and I'm 17, and I started an organization called Project I Am when I was only 8 years old to build awareness of homelessness and provide blessing bags for those in need. They're full of toiletry items like soap, tissue, socks, things that can kind of help them on a daily basis. And I started this organization with, plans of just helping out people, but it turned to something much more 9 years later. So I'm really proud of what I've been able to do so far. Been able to impact over 200,000 men, women, and children across the world now. So it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's such a unique business. I'm really excited to get into it. But starting off, thinking about to just when Project AM was beginning, can you bring us back to those origin days? And is there like any story or experience that sort of like influenced this business, or was it sort of something that you developed or like throughout the course of your life?
So when I was 5 years old, I actually went to go feed the homeless for the first time with my cousins, and I got to see how they live for the first time. This was super weird for me because at that age, I thought that everybody had homes. I kind of thought of the world as this, happy place, and like nobody had any issues because I was young. And I went in the car and I started questioning my auntie about, what was happening. Why were they out there with no home? And I went home and I asked my parents if we can give them all houses. Obviously, we couldn't do that. And we sat down and we talked about what we had on a daily basis that they don't have. And we came up with blessing bags. And it's something that lasts a little bit longer. And that's why I chose that over, doing the normal thing like food or anything. And that's kind of how it got kicked off.
And you said 5 years old for that?
Yeah, 5 years old.
That is crazy. And then like sort of to translate that experience that you had when you were so young into this like, lifelong passion is so interesting. And before we also, continue with the interview, I was reading through like all the stuff on your website and like online, all this stuff. I just want to make sure that I'm not selling you short. So you have books, acting, sports, activism. I just want to make sure I'm not like selling you short or anything.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. And what came first? Like, what was your first sort of inspiration of all these things? Because you've such a, diverse background of hobbies. What was the first main passion?
My first main passion and my first love is basketball. So that came first. And then I want to say modeling came and then acting. And then, well, I started tap dancing when I was maybe like, it was at a really early age. I'm trying to remember exactly which came first, but I think modeling I started at a really young age. So I'm pretty sure modeling was the next one, and then acting, and then I started tap dancing and break dancing. So those are like my four little hobbies that I got going on besides basketball. And yeah, I think that's the correct order. But it all happened at a really early age.
That's so crazy. And I'm happy I asked that question because I didn't even see tap dancing online. Like, that's just like,
Yeah.
so focusing mainly on Project I Am now, where did the main idea for that come about? In your household, was that sort of something that was talked about, like the sort of business and financial literacy? Did you create the idea with your parents, or was it something that you sort of presented to them in the first place?
Yeah, so I would say after when I was 5 years old, after that, just thinking of what we can do, and we thought about toiletry items, we didn't necessarily have anything to back it or any type of structure or an idea on how we can do this. And it took about like 3 years of just brainstorming and communicating within each other, just trying to figure out how we can launch this. And when I was 8 years old, I did my first pagging party, and I only had maybe like 20 of my friends. We did about 88 blessing bags. Weird number, actually. I don't know why we did just 88, but it was my first event and it was really cool. But we didn't have an organization at that point. It was just us coming out of our pockets to have this event. And after that, I was like, when is the next one going to be? So my parents were like, wait, what do you mean? Because they thought it was going to be like a one-time thing. Like, you know how kids are. Once they do something, it's over with. So I kept wanting to do them, and that showed them how much of a passion I really had. And we realized I had to, create something to back this because we can't keep coming out of our pockets. And we started the organization. Early on, of course, I'm 8 years old. I don't know anything about financial literacy coming off, but luckily I have the support of my parents and my mom, who has her own company and just knows the basics and all that's needed to really get started. So it really took a village, I would say, and especially dealing with a kid like me and only child, it was really surprising that I wanted to give back, but it's something that I'm really passionate about.
That's awesome. So you said 3 years, so that would have been when you were 8 years old, you started this party. And this blessing bags idea, is that name like your own sort of thing for it? You made that up?
I think that other people like use it, but when I was just thinking of something to do, I thought, what am I putting in the bags? You know, they're blessings, and then they're being put in the bag, so why not call it blessing bags? But definitely, I think it was great to see a lot more people doing the blessing bags and helping out the homes with the toiletry items.
I love that because I've never heard that before. I was like, that's fantastic. That's a genius idea. So when you're first starting out, with the blessing bags, compared to where they are today, what were you putting in it in that first? If you can go back to when you were 8 years old, what were you first putting in the bags versus how is it streamlined now?
I would say it was a lot more chaotic back then. It's more structured now. Definitely, I think when we first were starting, it was no inventory. It was just us buying these items at Dollar Tree, whatever they had. Now we're able to have more structure, getting items from Amazon, doing bulk orders, things like that. When we first started off, it was literally us taking trips to Dollar Tree all the time just to get these items individually. And what went in the bag was really based on, what they had. And it could be, certain type of granola bars that we don't really like or use to this day. It could be a lot more, just miscellaneous items. But now it's really structured where we have just one or two or even three of each item, and we do the same thing every time, unless it's something different for maybe it's winter or maybe it's summer and we're using water bottles. In the winter, we'll do like bigger bags and do hats and scarves and gloves, things like that.
Right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So, you talk about this 3-year period where you were thinking of like ideas. How do we make this happen? How can we make this our goal? What, were you researching? Like, how were you having this conversation? You mentioned that your mom has her own business and that she's an entrepreneur. How was that conversation with her? And what were like sort of the methods of study? Were there any like mentors or, just other methods of study that you use in order to find out, here's how I'm going to get these resources to the house's people?
Yeah, like dealing with your parents, trying to do a business, like that's the craziest thing a kid can do, especially at my age. So having conversations with them just to brainstorm on how we can jumpstart a whole business was really well, not even jumpstart a whole business, because we hadn't even thought of making a business at this point, but just having an idea of an actual event that we can put together, or what we can actually do besides just thinking of doing toiletry items. So it was definitely hard, but I would say they were really my mentors, just them having a lot of experience in the field, especially with marketing. They like to call themselves marketing masters and things like that. So having two people who are really, really good in that field also help with getting the word out about these types of things. And like I said, it really takes a village, because I can't do, especially at that age, I can't do anything like that on my own.
So it was definitely, as you mentioned, like it's crazy, trying to start that business up, but it seems like it was definitely necessary, and the sort of influence and the experience that they had helped you sort of navigate that. But I'm sure it wasn't, all sunshine and rainbows. Can you talk about some of those like early struggles? I know you mentioned shopping at Dollar Tree and it being much more chaotic, but can you talk about some of the bigger challenges, especially as you started to formulate this into like a proper business? And what were some of those first hurdles that you ran into?
Yeah, I mean, us being a non-for-profit is really one main struggle that you can go through, and that's droughts and donations. Since we feed off of donations, and early on, that's what we were kind of depending on to be able to go to Dollar Tree and get the items. We depend on money to go get the items, or depend on actual toiletry items coming in so that we could put them in the bags. And like I said, that's kind of why it was more chaotic as well. I didn't mention that when it's not only money that's getting donated, it's actual toiletry items that we used to use in the bags. So we still take donations, but it's more so really us doing bulk orders or us getting grants, things like that. And that's why the bags used to be a little bit more chaotic, because it was just miscellaneous, different brands of these items going into the bags that we give out. So but in terms of struggles, it was really just droughts and donations. And then after COVID happened, I would say the biggest struggle was finding out how we were gonna, keep afloat, and not being able to have like the whole community come together for a bag stuffing. And I came up with a solution. It's called virtual packing parties, which we've been able to do so many more bags in one sitting. And it's where we have people from all across the world come together on one Zoom call and pack the bags at the same time. And that's been one of the biggest things for us. And besides from that, I would say also the motivation part during COVID. I think during COVID, I was kind of just thinking to myself a little bit, like, what is the blessing bags really doing for them? It's not getting them off the street, and I kind of got down on myself about that. But my parents and my Gigi did a good job at reminding me that what I'm doing is giving them hope. You never know what it can do. If it reaches that one person, then you've done something good. It can, start a domino effect where somebody is able to get back on their feet. You never know. So those are the struggles, I would say.
That's great. And that's a great message. So, that's like the beginnings. Now we're going to go back on a happier path. I feel like that's a tough question for you to answer, and I appreciate that. But talk to me about the actual day-to-day, at Project IM. How does it work? And secondarily, like, what other resources do you guys provide? Is it just the blessing bag, or what else do we have going on?
Yeah, so I would say it's definitely a struggle as well. That's another thing. Time management has been a struggle since I'm a normal kid. I do all these activities. I'm in person school. I'm not homeschooled. It was always a struggle with time management, especially with me taking basketball serious and these other activities. But I would say that my parents did a great job at managing my schedule and making sure that we stay on task, and in the everyday routine, we kind of do a good job at, seeing if I need to focus on homework or if I need to focus on something else, and they'll take the load off and help me with that. Or some days I'll take the load off of them and focus on the organization. So it's really just a team effort, and that's what it takes when you're dealing with a kid like me who's still in school and doing all these things. It takes that amount of teamwork. But we do a great job. Been getting better at it every year, I would say. And besides from the blessing bags, we are actually moving, and since I'm going to college soon, we are trying to figure out how to branch out Project IM. So we've already started in a few places in the United States and also in France as well. Super excited about that. Since I'm not going to have as much time for the organization, since I'm going to be in college, it's not going to be easy for me to have as much input. So we're branching out and having different young people running Project IM where they are, and that's going to be super big for us, especially with the amount of blessing bags that we do. And I'm super excited for the next up project that we're doing. Also, tiny homes. That's something that I've been trying to bring to Chicago for a while. It's something that I feel like can ultimately demolish homelessness. And that's something that I'm really passionate about as well.
So, transitioning from Project IM into this, plethora of other things that you do, let's talk about the books. You have, if I recall correctly, 2 books out now. So I'm not sure, am I right?
Yep, 2.
Okay, cool, 2 books. How was that experience like writing books for the first time?
It was really cool, especially the first one, because it was a children's book, and I was able to work with my amazing mentor with that, Miss Biggs. She was great in helping with, the rhythm of the book. And since it was my first time, me not even calling myself a writer, really, I wouldn't consider myself a writer and somebody who really dreamt of writing books one day, but it kind of came out of necessity. and it was a way that I was able to express my feelings on paper. I went through a rough time in sixth and seventh grade with bullying, and it was like right before COVID happened, and we went into quarantine. I took that time to reflect, and I was able to figure out a way to, cope with that. And I decided to write a book about my journey, and in the process be able to help some other kids who may be going through something similar. So writing that was really cool. The book is it's in like a rhythm, and it sounds like a song kind of. So it was really fun to write that. And then my second book, Don't Wait to Be Great, is more of a chapter book, and that was cool to write, just being my first chapter book, and also being able to have a basketball feel to it. It's in a first, second, third, and fourth quarter and an overtime. That's kind of how it's formatted, and it was really cool getting to write that.
That's awesome. And it's so interesting, I've done a lot of these interviews so far with young entrepreneurs, and they talk about, oh, I never thought of myself as a writer. I never thought I'd be the type of person to write books. But then it feels like, I took a look at the book and all that. It's fantastic. And it's so interesting to see just like how that can translate into writing. And, even though you might not think of yourself that at first. And you also mentioned your mentor. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of mentorship and how they've helped you along the way?
Mentorship is a big deal, and it's sad that a lot of young people don't have the right access or don't know where to look. And I think that a lot of programs do a good job at trying to reach out to young people, especially these days. It is rough. It's a lot of stuff going on, and mental health is one of the most important things, I think, especially with young people in this generation. A lot of times adults don't have the full understanding of what young people go through, because it's a totally different time period. We have totally new ways that you can get bullied, new ways that you can get teased, and new ways that young people can get themselves into harm and danger. And this social media is dangerous. While it has its perks and it's really cool, it does have a lot of danger that comes with it. And I think that it definitely has a big effect on mental health. So finding a mentor and somebody to guide you along the way, and also finding a mentor that is able to listen to you, that's important. You don't want a mentor that is stuck in like their way or the highway and what they're saying is right. You want a mentor that's able to listen to you, resonate with you even. That's something that I found really important, and it's been cool for me as well to be mentors to other young people, and a lot of other young people kind of attached to me because I'm just like them. I like to call myself really 7 years old still. So just being playful still and being able to resonate with them is really important.
Mm-hmm. And how would you, suggest that younger people go about finding these mentors, and like how do they connect with adults?
It's definitely a struggle at times, but looking into adults at your school, you got counselors, you got different adults in your school that probably know of a program that can help. It's all different types of routes. It's just that sometimes we don't know where to start or where to ask.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And turning onto another page of the things you do, acting. Can you talk a little about your acting, career, and how that sort of inspiration came about when you were a kid?
Yeah, I mean, when I started, modeling was really what I loved, and that's why I started first. And then once I started modeling, it was like, why not? I guess I started doing acting classes, and I started to kind of, because I'm still a shy kid, but I'm telling you, was the biggest, like it was bad when I was younger. I used to hold on to my mom's leg. Like my first tap dance class, actually, when I want to say it was 4 years old when I had my first tap dancing class. But when I went, I wouldn't go on the floor unless my mom went with me, and I had to hold on to her leg the entire time while every other kid was in there normal doing their tap dance routine. I was in there, my mom was on the floor, I had to hold on to her leg. So growing up, I was always an introvert, and I think that they did that for me just to break me out of my shell and get me more comfortable with my peers. And I'm still totally an introvert. I don't like conversating and just talking, and that seems really weird being what I do. But It's definitely something that has helped me break out my shell, and it's been really cool going to classes, being on sets, and it also gave me a whole new passion as well, being a cameraman. I forgot to say that I started filming photography a couple of years ago, and that's something I want to major in college.
You're so young still. You have been doing this since you were, well, you've had the idea since you were 5 years old, been doing it since you were 8 years old. Do you ever feel that people would look at you differently because you're so young in this world of business? I guess it's different than some of the other entrepreneurs that we've interviewed who have more of like a monetary focused business. But even for running like a nonprofit, do you still feel like sometimes when you're doing like these public speaking events that people sort of look at you different, like he's so young, what does he have to tell us?
Right. I think that early on, because I got the recognition and I have stuff to back it up, like at an early age, I think that helped. When I was really young, I think it was like the first news channel that I went on was Windy City Live, I think. And then after that, just a bunch of news stations started to pick it up. And then I got on every news channel in Chicago. And then after that, I would say brands started to pick it up. And this was all happening before I even got in high school. So yeah, the major brands that I've worked with happened before I got in high school. And this is still early on in the organization. So when I do public speaking engagements, I'm literally talking about what happened with Obama, what happened when I worked with Nike. So it's not like I don't have anything to back it up. I don't have like stats or anything, like the amount of bags that I've done, that type of thing. I'm able to talk to them about that. And I think that adults, I know so many stories, and so many of my peers and my friends who have had a rough time with, the perspective of young people being in business. But luckily I haven't had a lot of those experiences, just because it was a lot of adults being, appalled by what I was doing and surprised that I was so young and accomplished so much. So me personally, I haven't had a lot of those experiences with adults not taking me serious. But I know a lot of young people have, and it's unfortunate. And I think that and that's something that I teach. Actually, I'm also a teacher in schools, and I teach social entrepreneurship. And I tell the kids all the time, just about using your voice and speaking up. And also when I'm public speaking, I tell adults that, and I tell adults, or when I'm doing panels, I tell adults that we need seats at the table. We are the future leaders of this world, and we need to start now so we can be better prepared in the future. So that's kind of what I preach a lot.
Right, and I love that. And you spoke just now about brands and this sort of exposure that you got through like Windy City Live. Can you talk a little bit about like advertising, not only the business, but yourself? Like how have you progressed in that field?
Yep. I think advertisement is one of the biggest things that helped me throughout this journey. Me not even worrying about advertisement and all these things these cool things that I was able to do, working with Marvel, working with Nike, Gap, all these brands. I think that I wasn't even paying attention to the I was just excited to be working with my favorite brand, Nike, and I wasn't paying attention to how this was really having an impact in really inspiring other young people. I think that I was just super excited, just being so young, doing this stuff. And I see now, when you get older, the cuteness dries up, and you're not the super young kid doing these amazing things. It's really hard for adults, for young adults to kind of not make an impact, but get recognized for that impact, I think. And that's really something I find unfortunate. But early on, advertisement, I think that it was really important for me, especially just being able to get the organization going so early.
Mm-hmm. And who are some entrepreneurs or business leaders or just other people in the world that inspire you?
For me, in terms of business leaders specifically, I would say LeBron is one of them. Not a lot of people know about his business aspect. And I will also say I really like Kevin Hart. And then I would say Dwayne Johnson. He's one of my favorite entrepreneurs. And these are all guys that like I relate with. I would say Michael B. Jordan as well. He's my favorite actor, but he does a lot in the community and also with his business and creating for himself in that industry is especially since I want to go into film. So it's really inspiring. And then my parents, my Gigi as well. I'll give a lot of credit to them. But yeah, I would say those people.
Okay, and what's one fact about you that most people don't know?
Usually when people ask me this question, I just say I'm an introvert or I tap dance, but we cover both of those. So I would say, people know almost everything about me. Let me see.
It's hard to tell this research.
Yeah.
That's a cheap question.
I would say not a lot of people know about my basketball plan. I would say that a lot of people kind of just think of me as the entrepreneur, but I'm an avid basketball player and looking forward to playing in the future and professionally. But yeah, I will give a lot of people buckets. Not a lot of people know about how serious I am with basketball. So I would say that.
I like it. And lastly, if you could describe yourself in one word, what would that be?
I would either say diverse or determined. Either one of those, because they both really kind of cover a lot of my personality. But it's hard to choose between those two. I would say those.
I like it. 2 words for a 1-word question. I'm just playing. Okay, so then, so we've looked at, the beginnings of Project I Am. We've looked at sort of like the modern era. Now, looking forward to the future, where do you see, yourself and this business within the next 5, 10, 15 years?
I would say I see the business very far along with the tiny home movement, hopefully going all across Chicago. And I think it started in a lot of places. Now we're just, falling behind because we can't get it together. LA has done good. I actually went to a tiny home community in LA, and I want to, build something like that in Chicago. That would be great. And I also want to do even more blessing bags, incorporate even more young people into the organization and be branched out all across the country. I also want to continue teaching. That's something that's really, really fun for me. I'm actually teaching my class and during my 4th period. I teach my class and I gotta go on Zoom calls and stuff like that. So that's really cool for me. Just being so young, being in school, teaching in school, that's always been cool to me. But those are things I want to be doing in the future, I'd say.
That's awesome. And are there any new products or projects that you can sort of give us a little spoiler to, anything you can tease for the future, like the upcoming?
New projects besides the branching out. It's called Project Next Up, which is yeah, it's a great name. We got all these people younger than me, who starting at the same age or even younger than what I was. So it's really cool just being able to see people from all across the country wearing their shirts and having their own little banners. It is really cool seeing them run their own Project I Am where they are.
Awesome. And I feel like you've already answered this a ton of times, but I was going to ask, what's your ultimate vision and goal with this brand and with the entrepreneurship journey? But I feel like with the tiny home movement, I feel like that is such a long-term, difficult project that has to be your ultimate long-term. I don't want to speak for you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that? But
yeah, besides the tiny homes, I would say just inspiring young people. That's one of my biggest goals, one of my proudest moments throughout these 9 years, and something I really love doing is working with youth and inspiring them. That's something I want to continue to do down the road, even if I'm not doing an organization for some reason. I always want to be giving back to the community and also inspiring other young people. So being able to work with young people and resonate with them, that's really important to me because I know that that's something I would have wanted when I was their age.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So these are my fun last two questions where it's like we get the good sound bite and then it's like the interview and it sounds really cool and funny. Are there any like funny stories that you can recall during, any time of the business? It could be like from the beginning where you just go back and look like, man, I messed up big time, or even in the modern day, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say a really funny moment that we had early on was probably my favorite moment when giving the bag out. It was when we went to our first shelter, and it was really hot that day. I remember like drenched, and I felt so bad because these people were just out here and they weren't in the shelter. They were like outside the shelter waiting to get in. So we set up in a pickup truck, started passing them out. People were lining up, and one lady stayed back after she got her bag, and she told us about a story, how she got to where she is. And it was really cool just to have somebody, get comfortable and talk to us and about what they were going through. And at the end, she did like a Donald Duck impression. Like, it was hilarious. It was like, it really made my day. And I think that was definitely one of the best experiences that I had, actually giving out a bag to somebody, actually being able to have a conversation.
I like that, the personal connection. I feel like that's so important. And lastly, what is your all-time favorite moment or biggest success you could say so far from your business journey?
I would say reaching 200,000 blessing bags was the best part. Other than meeting Obama, that was pretty cool. I would say it's the 200,000. That's a huge number, and it's just crazy to think, this early on, being able to do 200,000.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I like how you threw in the Obama flex too. Like, that also happened. It's cool. It's just a little something side quest. It's very cool.
That's
pretty much all I had for you question wise today. Do you want to do any quick shout outs or tell us where we can find, more information about you and Project I Am?
Definitely. I want to give a big shout out to my parents, my Gigi, who have helped me throughout this journey, and all my friends and family who have come out to support with the organization throughout the years. If you want to find me, you can go to my Instagram, Jahkil Jackson, Jahkil Jackson. Also, my website is weareprojectim.com, and you can find out more information about our next bag stuffing and what we're doing there.
I like it. All right. Well, thank you so much for, also, do you want to shout out like where we can find like websites, like any information like that?
Oh, yeah. You can find a lot of information on my jahkil.com website as well as the weareprojectim.com website.
I like it. I had to give you that free airwave, like little shout out. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate how thoughtful all of your answers were. I hope you have a great, upcoming senior spring and all that, with graduation right around the corner, and in all future endeavors, college, basketball, business, whatever, and especially against the Heat upcoming in the playoffs. That's going to be huge. Thanks so much.
Thank you.